welcome to the bench. As always, I am Tanith, and I am joined here by my intrepid co-star, Horus.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Horus.
We've got two special guests with us today. Let's introduce them. Welcome, special guests, Blademaster Fox, Warmaster Cord.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for joining the show. Today's show, we have a special topic for you. This is the Red Scare. We're going to talk about red fighting today. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Belgarth or Boffer fighting, red fighting is another name for Greatsword fighting. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We've got an action-packed agenda for you today. First, we're going to talk about who is Fox and Cord. We want to get to know who these folks are. Next, we're going to talk about the history of red fighting. Third, we're going to talk about how did you, as in Fox, Cord, and Horus and myself, how did we get into red fighting? After that, we're going to talk about how do you red fight? Then we're going to talk about let's talk red safety. And then, as always, maybe, possibly, if we don't change it, what are we going to do next week? Any questions? Any questions from the studio audience or from our friends on the panel about our agenda?
No.
Let's get to it. So topic one, who is where are we at? There we go. Who is Fox and Cord? Let's start with Blademaster Fox. Who is Blademaster?
Blademaster.
Blademaster.
So yes, I'm Blademaster Fox. I started red sword fighting and just fighting in general in 2013. Always been in Florida. My friend told me one day, he's like, "Hey, I joined this group. We LARP and we hit each other foam sticks." I was like, "Let's start. Let's do it. Show me. Let's do it. I'm in it." He's like, "Oh, well, straight off bat." I was like, "I'm in it." They're like, "Okay." So he handed me basically like a 46-inch blue. He's like, "Oh, we'll call this a red, and you'll just go down." And then 2 weeks later, I went to my first event. It was Summer Slaughter in Florida, which is like 110-degree weather Florida event in August that was blazing hot, but I had a blast. Bought my first red from Gorg there, and I've been hooked since. Red sword for me has always been my primary. I do a lot of other fighting and other weapon sets, but red has always been what I strive to get better with. I am the 12th Blademaster apprentice. 12th Blademaster.
Master.
Yeah, Master. I was apprenticed under Dozer from Ebon Light, and I'd say my primary fighting style is defensive oriented, with using a buckler and like a 65. But that's the real basics. I'm sure we'll learn more about me when we go on. But I also have 2 apprentices with Blademastership. I have Blue from Dirt of Marion and The Lost, and I also have Ash from Fort Myers, Florida.
They're both awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
What about you, Cord?
Hi, everybody. My name is Cord. I'm a goblin, if you don't know. I guess I'll only do sort of some monster voices. I've been fighting a long time. I am coming up, I think, on towards the end of my 14th season. So I started fighting I first started fighting in 2009. My first weapon was a yoga foam roller duct taped to a wooden dowel to make a glaive.
Oh, hell yeah.
Started fighting in a DAG realm called Millenerod in San Jose. 2010 probably was when I first really started fighting. 2011 switched over to Dagger here because San Jose was 2.5 hours away from where I lived, and the new realm was just 25 minutes. Under a gentleman by the name of Savage. He was the gentleman orc. And it was a realm called Rain Dunayar. I was there for a while. 2012 was my first Chaos Wars. Went to that event and joined the Western Urkai. Basically around that time, Forkbeard's unit. I picked up my first carbon fiber weapon there. It was a carbon fiber axe Forkbeard made. Fell in love. Really, ever since I can remember, the 2 things I've been doing has been spear fighting and red fighting. I started as an archer, so I've done the whole gamut. In 2013, I went to college, didn't have a realm, started one. That's when Armored Penguins came from. A lot of cool people have come out of that. It was definitely not just me, but we built a cool group there. I did Red Squad stuff there for a while and really just dove into red fighting. I've been a min red fighter forever. I bought my first Gorg sword in 2014. I think I might have been the first person to bring a Gorg red into California, and I absolutely fell in love with red fighting. Trained really hard, did my first big trial, which was my Urkai trial, which is actually on YouTube, with a red sword. It was a line of fighters, beat everyone. They all had sword and boards, got a concussion. Thanks, Rumbeard. Also, no, that wasn't Rumbeard. That was Bruja. Either way, I had good fun there. 2014, I became an apprentice under Hakan for Warmaster, which was, I actually saw the second Warmastering, which was Warmaster. Valis' Warmastering, which is really cool. We can always talk about being goblins, friends. I'm happy to preach that. Then, yeah, I've been around the circuit for a long time. 2022, I moved to Jacksonville, Florida. Ancient Wharf was dead. I'm proud to say Ancient Wharf is not dead anymore. It took me a while to start fighting again. But it's funny because when I first started red fighting, I was watching DAC videos, the Brotherhood of the Red videos. I think I got my Brotherhood of the Red flag in like 2014. So I've been playing red forever. I like to say min red is the finesse weapon of the game. Watching people do what they do now with red swords is amazing. When I was fighting with red swords in the beginning, it was okay, how powerful of a red shot can you throw? Because that's the only thing you're gonna fucking do, right? Like the push-pull mechanic, I did that for hours and hours and hours, and I'm happy to say, yeah, I can make a gunshot sound without swinging. Now, right? A lot of it was you're tiny, you're too small, you don't hit hard enough. So you learn to hit harder. But yeah, I'm sure we'll learn more about me. I got Warmastered in 2017. I'm crazy and did a Witch Doctorate at the same time, which is an RP title. I'm happy to talk about that later. It's a Goblin thing. See, they did say I would be quiet. I don't know why, but we knew I would be quiet. I'll be louder. And then this year, I finished my Master Chronicler project, and I was the first Master Chronicler of Belagarth. So that was a cool, big thing that I did.
Yeah, well deserving.
Really, thank you. Really, really proud of that project. I think it's the coolest thing I've done in Belagarth. I have a handful of apprentices. I have 3 acolytes at the moment. No, 2 acolytes. So Natsu and Technopop are acolytes for Warmaster. Bourbon is an apprentice. He was just apprenticed. Kestrel is an apprentice. And then I have 2 Master Chronicler apprentices. Brazen, I'm very excited to be working with Brazen. Lucky too, she keeps me on my toes. And then Stellar, who is my roommate, and he's the creator of the Nadar race. I will yell! I'm sorry, I'll be louder. If you need me to yell, it's no
You're
problem.
the loudest person for me, so
Yeah.
Anywho, we'll talk more, but that's my spiel on myself, I guess.
Heck yeah. I'm going to open it up to the chat to see if they have any immediate questions for Fox and Cord about their histories. Whoops, wrong one. Let's go here. While we're opening up to chat and while we're looking for some questions, I'm glad somebody pointed out that I have some new accoutrement in my studio here. This is thanks to the lovely, beautiful Sydney, otherwise known as Gat Stormcloud at Belgarth. She told me she decided that my look was too plain and she wanted to add some new stuff to it. So big thanks to hers for big thanks to her for helping me out with that.
Got props over here. I like props too.
Props are good. Ha. Let's see. So what do we have? We have Cord. Have you studied Fiore? He's a mad lad just like you.
So I haven't. I dabbled a little bit in steel fighting. I did live steel. I personally realized that if I was going to do it safely, I needed to do judo, weightlifting, and a whole bunch of other things that I am too lazy to do. So I did put the steel sword down, but I have not gone deep into any HEMA really. I've dived into one thing, which is stick tag. I really like stick tag. I can't turn myself up. You should hear us on our end.
Yeah.
It's something to do with Twitch or something. I don't know why Cord is coming in quiet. Like I said, in the there's no I can't. The mixer is all the way up. He is. I I can try turning myself down a little bit.
Yeah, maybe turn the 3 of us down and him up.
Yeah.
And then everyone else will just have to deal with it, changing their volume.
That's sad.
I know.
I like being loud.
You're
So
loud in our hearts, Cord.
I can hear you. Right? Tanith is the one that I can't hear. It's very
I
interesting.
agree.
You can't hear
Tanith is
me?
Quiet from... No, we
Yeah,
can hear
Tanith
you.
is
You're
really
just
quiet
the
for
quietest.
Oh.
Fox is the loudest. I'm
Oh,
Fox.
Yeah. You're not
Well,
too loud, but you definitely come through. You and Cord are coming through much louder than Tanith for
True.
me.
Interesting. All right.
And he's got the fancy microphone.
I do.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got more questions for you guys. Did I remember to turn my Streamlight on? I did. Let's see. What do we got? Let's see. I could have... Oh, do you think... this is a question for... How about all 4 of us? Do you think we would still be fighting if we hadn't picked up a red? If so, what would be using instead? Obviously, for me, I'm like I'll go first since I'm easy. I fight with literally just about everything. So yes, I'd still be fighting, and I'd be using just about everything else. So it's an easy question for me. Fox, you're up next.
I'd probably become a spear fighter,
Okay.
to be honest. But yes, I'd still be fighting.
Cord, how about you? If you didn't pick up a red, what would you be doing?
I'm like you, bro. I fight with everything. My current passion's been my passion, thanks to Hakan forever, is single blue. But I'm like, if you want to see me in a tournament other than a 1-on-1, I'm gonna use a spear. If you want me in a trial, I'm gonna use a spear.
Okay.
Actually, there's some great footage of Cord and I.
Yeah,
messing up
that's
photos.
true. Fucking messing him up, bro.
Horace, what about you? What would be your go-to? If I mean, you don't really main red, but what's your go-to?
No. I've been a sword and board fighter for forever, but I really enjoy fighting single stick or 2-stick the most.
Amir power. They're all so fun to fight.
Just love
single
swords,
stick.
man.
I know.
Swords are cool. Any other questions for us before we move on to the next topic? Oh, everybody's just pumping me up here. They like fighting me, apparently.
Kudos.
You deserve it.
What is your least favorite matchups on the field, and why is it archers? Okay, fair. My least favorite matchup, actually, if I'm using a red, is against spear fighters. I'm like... Because, like, and like, at the last Geddon, I remember Fox teaching people, like, do, like, a lift-up thing, like, punch them up to the sky. And I started doing that. I did that when I visited, I forgot the name of the park. Whoosh's Park. When I visited Whoosh's Park, like, 2 weeks ago, I started doing that, and I was like, oh, this is working. I'm also terrified I'm just going to push them up as they're stabbing, and it's going to... Dunlin, that's right. I'm terrified it's going to push up and, like, hit me in the throat or something, so I'm, like, tentative on it. I'm, like, afraid to rush in while I'm doing it. But, yeah.
It takes practice.
Spear fighters and archers are, like, my least favorite things to fight when I'm using red. Fox, how about you?
So for me, it's actually other people. If I'm using a buckler in red, is fighting other people with a buckler in red.
Okay.
Because there's only one real easy way to defeat someone buckler red, and once they know it, it's easy for both people, is to just double leg them.
Okay.
It's just simple, clean, and easy. But fighting against everything else, I have a good time. Spears, I have a buckler. Archers, I have a buckler. Sword and board, I have a buckler. It's kind of the cheat option is using a buckler, but it's fun.
Just make everybody else louder, Tanith, and I'll be loud. I think that's the way to go. Everyone else is quiet now.
Sounds like a plan.
So chat saying they can't hear me.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is a little better.
Yeah, that's loud, bro.
Cord, how about you? What's your least favorite matchup with a red fight?
So, obviously archers suck, but I like fighting with a helmet. So I actually love fighting archers because then I get to face block their arrows and it makes me feel like a superhero.
Yeah.
I despise fighting a spear.
Yeah.
I don't like getting stabbed in the testicles. I'm sorry. I just don't. Or the throat. And typically that's what ends up happening for me. Parrying up is something I never do because I've watched people lose their teeth and I don't intend to do that myself. But I also don't really care about winning more than keeping my teeth safe because that's very expensive.
That's why you'll never warlord. I'm just kidding.
No, that's probably true. That's why 2 of my titles are RP titles, right? Like, I'm just a dirty nerd and a flurby, you know? No stick jock in me.
Horus, how about you? What's your least favorite matchup when you're using a red?
Oh, fucking spears.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go!
Ding, ding, ding.
I don't know why people
3 out
are
of
mad
4.
at archers. If they miss, you just dodge and then you charge it.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're in a line, then you just bring your shield, and it's not like you're gonna be swinging anyways.
Even
'cause
with
there's
a
like
cup.
20 fucking spears trying to stab you. Doesn't matter. I'm wearing a cup.
Yeah,
So
stabbing it in the dick is not fun, regardless.
Also, I've
Cup or
gotten
no cup.
checked in the face with a band shot pole, and
Ooh.
he like cracked 2 of my teeth. So
Oh.
yeah,
Oof.
spears are on my shit list. Also, in Numenor, we have very, very good spears. Very
Well,
good.
the thing is, when you have a good spear, they're really f***ing good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mediocre spears are mediocre, but good spears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have people who regularly just like
Mongoose.
solo sword and mortars.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Constantly, like
Mm-hmm.
so satisfying.
it's
It's
nothing.
so fun. It's
Yeah.
so fun.
Next
one of
question
them in
is.
the chat saying he loves me, but I know how he stabs me.
Next question is: do you use red in a ditch?
Always.
Always. I wouldn't say always for me, but I definitely do use red in a ditch. It's actually super fun to use in an Amtgard ditch too, you know, because it's definitely a different fight, and I love going to a Bell event and like Fox or somebody will like teach me some new tech, and I'm like, okay, and I go in an Amtgard, you know, I'll go in an Amtgard ditch and I'll Gravedigger, and people are like, what the fuck was that? You know, like they don't know
It's
what
so
to do.
fun. It's so fun. Yeah.
So
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Cord, do you red in a ditch?
Always.
Always?
Almost exclusively.
Oh wow, okay.
Because most of the time in ditches, people don't enjoy fighting spears, and I like to have fun, and so I fight spear when I need to win. And other than that, it's like, you know, I fight with 55s to 48s.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things to fight with is a 47-inch sword, because then I don't even have the choice to break shields, and it's all finesse. But that's not a red; that's technically a blue. So yes, I fight with reds predominantly.
Horus, you red in a ditch?
Sure. I mean, how else are you gonna learn to defend yourself and fight? You know,
Bingo.
1v1
Makes sense.
if you're not willing to do it in a ditch. So, I mean, if I'm fighting red, I'm fighting red no matter where we are. And that's not like a cheesy weapon to bring to a ditch.
Yeah.
Like, you should expect to fight a red.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not gonna bring an 8-foot pole arm, but I'm gonna bring a min or 55. Like,
I'm not gonna bring a crash red to a ditch necessarily.
Yeah.
It's not useful. If anybody knows how to close, they'll just close on you.
Yeah.
Too long is a problem. Min red, best red. I have a lot of agreements in that. Yeah.
Why not? Next question asks is why not parry left or right? Why parry up?
For the spear,
Yeah.
I was already kind of explaining there. If you parry left or right, like using the technique I was teaching again was that you use your red to become almost parallel with the spear, dip down a little bit, catch it from the bottom, lift it up, and then you can engage and then get the horizontal chop afterwards. When you just bring it over to the left or the right, they have the ability to bring their spear to block or to get back into position to stab you. By lifting it up, they can only block vertically. And that gives you more opportunities to actually hit them or stab them back. That's my favorite thing to do, is that I get to stab the spearmen, and they get real sad.
They're like,
kidneys. If you push it down, then they're able to bring it up between your legs, and then you're real sad. So that's why I've been like doing it up.
Yeah, I typically go to the side myself, because I like, again, safety for me, and I use angles to then get around the block that I know is going to be there, because you can push it to a side and then force them to make a block in a very specific way. Otherwise, they're going to die. But actually, what you said, Fox, is the key right there. Whether you block up, down, left, or right, stab them.
Yep.
It's just faster, and you're already in that position with a block often.
It's easy.
We got 2 more questions.
When you
go ahead.
block someone, how do you? This is versus a spear specifically. You're stabbing them after.
Yep. No, it's not so like you just block their shot, then you stab them. It's that you have that engage, you lift their spear up, left, right, down in a direction, then you stab them afterwards. Because when you have a vertical, horizontal, diagonal block with a large pole arm,
You can get
they
around.
have the ability to block slashes very easily, but stabs become
That
very
makes
difficult.
sense. So are you doing it when you would do this? Would you do it in like, I move their, I shovel their spear. or
Basically,
something.
yeah, you were
Do I,
shoveling it away.
in one motion, then stab them, or do
how I
I
like
shovel their spear?
There's like a
reset,
small break.
stab them?
Yeah,
Okay.
once you
There
see
has to
the
be a
spear
break
spot.
depending on your footwork, but I really like to do it as a fluid motion, but it is still two motions.
Yeah,
Like it's not a motion. It wouldn't be shot in motion if it was like in a tournament. It would be late,
Sure.
right? But it's all about the changing of the plane. Like with my glaive, it's a little crooked, and then I can put Irish on my stab, right? You can do the same thing with a sword.
I want
If I'm using like a min or smaller red, I might do a one-handed stab, but a longer red, I may continue and make it two-hand stab.
His one-handed stabs are just disgusting. That's a new thing I'm dealing
Yeah.
with. Board. Like, that didn't happen in California.
Do like stabbing people.
I mean, I do too.
Stab is fun. That's how when I was doing my first attends with a bunch of Blademasters and apprentices, I would say that my stabs were, because I won most of them. I didn't win all of them, but I won most of them, and my stabs were what got me there. I was like fumbling around like a monkey fucking a football for the most part, but when I have the footwork, and the stabs were just landing every time, and I was like, yeah, red stabs are cool.
What's your like favorite stab to do?
For me? Or
Yeah,
for...
like red versus red.
It's actually the stab I taught at Geddon. It's a stab I learned from Blademaster Airden, where it's a frontline stab where you bring yourself forward, take a half step with your primary foot, have your pommel meet at your knee. Then you're going to take a full step with your other foot and able to get a one-handed lunge stab that
Okay,
gives
the drop
a...
stab.
And the idea is that not only are you able to stab them, but you're also stabbing them if they take a step backwards.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I can usually get underneath their hands and get directly into their chest or into a hip.
It's good too because you take that step with your right foot and it reads not, I'm gonna stab you with my left hand. It
Correct.
reads, I'm gonna advance on you and hit you.
Bingo.
I want to take a second to thank everybody that subscribed. We had like
Yeah,
a
that was-
flood. There was like 9 people. Thank all of you. Queen, Full Auto RPGs, Farron, Gorg, Pause, who is Crash, Novus Kung Fu, Sorvana. Thanks all of you guys. That's super awesome.
I think full autos is Squire Mongoose.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Let's see. 2 more questions we got. What is the first sign that a red fighter is moving out of the intermediate to advanced red fighting?
I mean, I have mine, but I think Fox will probably have a more technical answer. But I like volleys. If I'm fighting someone and we can volley back and forth consistently, and that means like I'll throw a shot. You have to basically block strike, but not intentional. Like Fox, when you and I fight, we don't have a 2-second fight.
No.
Very rarely. Usually, you throw something, I throw something, you throw something, and then somebody gets it. That's fun for me.
Oh yeah.
That's when I know, okay, they don't just know the basics, they know how to implement them, they know how to block, they know how to move around things and adapt.
For me, it's the person not focuses on their hands, but on their feet.
Ooh.
When they're able to basically separate fighting from into just being primary just hands, but able to separate their body into 2 zones. That's definitely more of a intermediate to advanced fighter in general. But when they're able to implement something that I have 2 hands on something, but then I also have 2 feet that are different. And then when I would say they're, I don't know what's after advanced, legendary or whatever, is when they can subdivide it into 4 pieces.
Legendary.
Yeah.
Each hand, each leg.
Each foot. That's a really cool. I like that a lot.
Play drums, and you'll get there.
Last question. Do you, unless Horace, you have what's your take on that?
I couldn't fucking tell you.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there.
I
with
could tell you at other kinds of fighting, but I would say of those responses, what Fox said is like what I would think fighting someone. It's very obvious when you're not using your feet. Like if you're just getting legged consistently in a fight, like you're probably not very good. Intermediate people, you might still do that, but an advanced person is not just going to let you chop their legs to pieces.
I'm kind of like, all right, they're a good red fighter. They're beating me, so they're probably good. That's what I'm like. They're pretty good. Last question.
I kind of use that.
It's a good metric.
It's a good metric.
Because we always, I don't know. I always think of myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm average. I'm all right.
Okay.
You know.
Yep.
And then, like, I mean, I do, you know, it's like, you know, unless, you know, I think everybody kind of sees themselves naturally in like a human way is like the baseline a lot of times. And then so you kind of, you know, build your rankings based on that. Or at least I do.
Are we getting foam fighting Elo soon? Is that what you're getting?
I hope not.
That sounds
It took all the fun out of it for me.
That sounds stressful.
It does.
Stressful.
Not into that.
Last question for now. Do you feel like
I'm ready?
yeah, but Horus is like the competitive one, so he's like, let's
Sure,
do it.
yeah.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the easier access to ultralight red weapons to new players have increased headshot rates at events?
Can I go?
You may.
Yeah.
So, fuck yeah. The Reds. But I just want to say that even though that's true, I mean, in this game period, like, it's so much better than it used to be. Like, not necessarily getting, I mean, even getting hit in the head, I feel like it happens less. But, man, you just get hit in the head by, like, one of those van shop pole
Oh, you were out.
slaves, and you're done. Like, you shouldn't be fighting anymore. People would keep fighting, but you shouldn't. Now I get hit in the head by a forged foam red, and I'm like, okay, give me a second. And you're fine. So it's, yes, it happens more because there's more people using them, but it's so much better. It's not the same level of damage.
I feel like too, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like back in the day of Belgarth, it used to be like it gave off like WrestleMania energy, right? Like people were like, I'm gonna hit you as hard as I can, you know, and like, you know, there's a lot of emotion that went into the fighting styles. Where nowadays people are taking time to analyze. They treat it like a sport. You know, they're coming up with fighting styles. They're focused. They're doing practiced, trained motions and stuff. And you know, I feel like that probably might influence both the headshot rate and also how much headshots hurt. You know, because it's less about almost a performance when people fight and more of like they're actively trying to treat it like a skill set. You know. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I
have a super hot take about this, so I'll go.
Let's hit it. Let's go. Let's do it.
No, I think Fox and I. So personally, I think that, man, I really think a lot of the newer red fighters are problematic because they're trying to do what advanced red fighters have spent literal years training to do safely, and it fucking pisses me off. The amount of times I've been flatted in the hip or hit in the head or something because someone's trying to do something. Anime is a problem. So, like, right? The thing about heavier weapons is you can't do that shit with a heavy weapon unless you're really strong. Which, yeah, I've been hit by Forkbeard in the head, so yes, I know what it's like, and I agree with you, Horus. I think in general, Belgarth is a much safer game than it used to be. In fact, on a huge level. But what I see in red fighting specifically is what used to be like I'm gonna smash your shield, right? Is now like, okay, I'm gonna juke you and try to hit you in the shoulder. Oops, I hit your face. I mean, I've had my earrings knocked out. Like, maybe it's also because I moved to Florida, and Florida red fighting is very different than California red fighting, and both can be very advanced, but it is different culture. But I think that having lighter weapons allows people who are not as skilled to get away with doing things that are more advanced than they can do safely.
That makes sense. That makes sense. It enables fighting, but that could be like it enables more options or moves, but that could be a bad thing, potentially.
So my hot take is that how easy is it for you to think about 20 years ago to build a blue sword?
How easy for it?
Sure.
to make a blue sword. Very easy to make a blue sword 20 years ago, right?
Yep.
How easy is it to build a red sword 20 years ago?
Same. Basically.
I mean, to make one passing, I think it was a little harder than
True.
making a blue sword, but it's the same
So
concept.
what happens is that people started making a ludicrous amount of blue swords. Giving people a blue sword, giving people a blue sword. Then the advent of YouTube with Brotherhood of Red and order videos, and then
Or Take 3.
people like Forge Foam and Gord being like, would you like to buy a sword that's difficult to make? Here you go, ship in the box. Oh, carbon fiber.
I see where you're going.
box
I think
at
I
your
see where
house.
you're going with this.
So over the trends of the years, we have seen that fields used to be 80-90% sword borders or Florentine fighters. But now it's starting to get way more populated with the red fighters.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
the skew has been going up higher
For
because the accessibility of red swords and pole arms and the pizzazz and the Buster Swords and anime has I've done a bunch of stuff with that. But people have now been realizing that, oh, headshot from red sword hurts. But how often have you also been headshot by a blue sword?
Oh yeah.
And also, how often you get headshot by blue sword multiple times in the same fight?
That hurts, by the way.
It still hurts.
Us, but yeah.
I
That's
don't know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Is it-
So, in my opinion, it's not necessarily like ultralight red sword bad. It's people are noticing it more because it has more pain individually in the one singular motion. But people are still getting headshot by every single weapon set. Maybe people are getting headshot less by spears in general.
Okay.
I don't think so. I've seen it more in the last year and a half than I used to because now people are watching advanced fighters throw shoulder shots and they're like, I'm going to
Fair.
do that. It's the same
It could
thing.
also be availability.
Neck, valid, neck.
Availability.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm seeing that the skew of more difficult weapons to build have been more available in the field due to new availability because people are being manufacturers of weapon sets.
Good
That makes
take.
sense.
Good take.
Good take.
Yeah,
Speaking of
That makes sense.
I like that.
Speaking of manufactured weapons, bench exclusive, heard it here first. Gorg is phasing out Band Shop this year, other than 8-foot spears. Until they find a replacement, they are phasing out Band Shop at Forge Foam. So
It's not safe.
yeah,
So, like, I have a story, like a fun red story that I was going to save for later, but Rao of the Valley Militia made me a red years and years and years ago. It was my first red sword, or red glaive. And I remember my, like, best friend from high school swinging it over his head and hitting the side of my leg, and my leg hit my other leg and flew my legs out from under me, and I smashed on the ground because of the freaking weight of these things. I mean, anybody who's been around for a long time, which all of us have, you sword and boarded once and got hit by one of those old reds, and you're like, dude, if my shield wasn't here, I would go to the hospital. I mean, I'm smaller than most people, but, like, seriously, the old stuff was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So
makes sense.
It is kind of wild at the way that we used to fight.
Yeah.
I feel like that's part of why it feels like there's more longevity amongst sword fighters these days. I mean, maybe it's just because I've fought for a lot longer, so I notice it more. But I think that the weapons not all being quite so dangerous helps a lot.
I think another big switch is from Dagger here to Belgarth because we can have the minimum weights be pushed into the handle as opposed to being front heavy.
Yeah, that's a big factor. I mean, I've always been a Bellegrim, so, except for the beginning.
Sure, yeah.
I will, if I may, just one thing, though. With the lighter tech, what did happen is smaller tech. And that was a change as well. So I would say lower profile stab tips on red swords is a new thing. The old red swords were not small like that. They couldn't be. It wouldn't pass. And I have the most personal fear of small stab tips. The throat, the eye socket. I know it passes template, but still it's a lot of force in a small area. And the floating rib is such a happy spot to hit, man. I love hitting it. But it is scary. And I've watched people retire from the game completely, and it is mostly due to these smaller tips. And the only way that happens is the swords are so light. Man, you can definitely make a passing small tip because there's just less weight. The old band shop poles, dude, if your head wasn't like this, you're gonna kill someone, right? You're not really, but we're here ultimately to play a game. And yes, it's a sport. And yes, it's competitive. And yes, you're going to get hurt. Deal with it. It's a combat game. However, if your opponent isn't, then the size of the weapon really matters.
Makes sense. Well, let's pop over to our agenda. We've got Who is Fox and Cord, and then we did a little bit of brief chatting and kind of touched on everything. But next we're going to talk about the history of red fighting. And the question is... Oops. The question is, who wants to take the lead on that?
We have two really different stories because one is West Coast and one is East Coast. And I think that it would make most sense for you to take it first, Fox, because I was one of the first, maybe not the first, but one of the first red fighters in California, and a lot of my stuff came from DAC. Right? The very, very beginning was all that.
Oh, man.
So for me, I'm from Florida, so I'm engrossed with the Proto-Order into Ebon Light red fighting realm. And since I was like red from the start, it was like, okay, these are my heroes. They've been on the YouTube. They've been on the video. The Order Take 3. Cool. Yeah. Throwing people into trees, doing barrel rolls, hitting people across the back when they're legged. Like, there's just crazy things that happened in the past. Now, I know all those people in those videos now. I've met all of them. They're not like that anymore. Weapons are much better. But it was a different culture back then.
It was.
But for me, it was that glory of, like, big sword, big swing, beat 5-6 people by yourself, make people fly in the air like they're like minions or something. And that was my thought, was like, cool, I want to be like those guys. And then like I meet them and they're just nerds, and I'm like, oh, oops, just nerd. And for me, it was like, okay, well, maybe there's more to this. And for me, I was kind of like, I'm gonna go at my own pace, I'm gonna do my own thing, I'm gonna be a red fighter, and I'm just gonna go along. And then it was 2016 or so, the Blademastership program started, where it was like, hey, we are the top 6 or 7 Blademaster, best red fighters in the country, and we want to teach you how to be a better red fighter. And I was like, sign me up, let's do it. So I talked to Doser, he was my first pick, and took a little while, but eventually became his apprentice. And a lot of his teachings was thinking about like defense first. Of like, you could kill them if you just block their shot and it leaves them open. Why not force them to throw a shot that you want them to throw? If you want them to throw at your hip, make them throw at your hip. If you want them to throw at your shoulder, make them throw at your shoulder. And using fakes and like feints and using blocks and footwork to make yourself basically unkillable, but always killing them, was always the Iron Grin mentality. And I have procured that thought process into my own house, which is Silver Eclipse, which is don't even give them a chance to do that stuff, where it's just you prevent them from playing and then you kill them. It's denial as opposed to more defense. And I'm a very proponent of like educating people about safety and red fighting and doing all this kind of other stuff. But I guess that's how I started. And for me, a lot of this denial and defensive fighting was because I'm fighting Blademaster Ragefire, Blademaster Datsun, Blademaster Apprentice Bacon, Blademaster Lester, every practice. And those are some of the hardest hitting people in the entire sport. And I'm like, I don't want to get hit by that. Let me take a step back or block it and then fight them. So that's where a lot of my mentality and my red fighting started from there. I also have a color guard background, a marching band background, a lacrosse background. So I try to use all of that footwork and mentality and dance as well to be able to progress myself to fight better by thinking about things that people don't think about first. Footwork, defense, and then thinking about hitting the person is where my general mentality is. Chat wanted me to flex.
Yeah, boy!
That's my story.
Cord, what's the West Coast history of red fighting?
So I guess I'm coming at it from the question from a slightly different angle. I'm a chronicler, so I was going to talk a little bit about the history of red fighting. Red fighting, for the vast majority of the 2000s, was heavy weapons, shield breaking, support weapons. There was no finesse to it. It was like, okay, we're going to go at it. You know, you're usually a big big dude with like a hammer or big heavy glaive, and that kind of was the meta for a long time. And that's why there was out west such a big culture, and Red Squad was a big proponent of this. Like, guys, we have to do this safely. You know, I have a bamboo glaive back there. Misty picked it up and was like, wow, that's heavy. That was one of the lightest fucking weapons for a long time, right? So the culture for a long time, and I think this was both in the East Coast, Ragnarok and such like that, and the West Coast, is these big red weapons that were about breaking shields and allowing other fighters to push through, right? Oh, that's fair. Different Misty. Okay. So that was how Reds worked for a long time. And that was how they were when I started. When I started, I was a little dude and I was like, okay, but I can't do that. And I did learn. But again, these heavy weapons, they just didn't work. And I remember the first red sword, or it was a glaive fighter that was really quick about it, was this gentleman by the name of Beryl out of a realm called Salamandastron. And, you know, I saw his silhouette holding this glaive, and I was like, oh my god, that's the coolest thing ever. And out west, you know, it was Zale and myself and a couple other people that really changed it from like, we're just going to smash shields to we don't even have to. For me, it was I'm gonna bait you, throw a leg cast, and as you're going down, I'm gonna hit your arm or hit your shoulder, or something I did. My own personal foray into red fighting was because people told me I couldn't do it. Like, there just weren't, not like I couldn't red fight, but I was trying to one-on-one shields. I was trying to, like, you know, use it as my primary weapon, and it was like, no, that's not happening. You know, you're not going to be able to do the Urkai barrel with a red. So I learned and beat my head through it. And then the DAC videos came out. And it was like, holy shit, he wrote a book. There's so much knowledge. Consume. And I just beat my head. I lost, I think, at the beginning of my min-red journey. It was really changing from the heavy reds to like, no, I'm going to use a 48. It was the square, like, fiberglass cord Gorg red sword. And I fought with that so long that it flexed out. That's how that sword failed. It flexed out.
Wow.
And it was, you know, just beating my head against sword and borders. The culture shifted with those DAC videos. People would start to enter, we have the best pause. Everybody needs to be aware that we have a wonderful guest. We are graced with the wonderfulness of Puppy. All hail the moon. Okay,
this
back
is
to
Sparrow.
Yay.
She's the best dog ever.
Yay.
There's literally, she's perfect.
She's so
her own
sweet.
poop. That's her.
That's okay.
Aw.
Everybody has their own thing.
That's where she gets her power.
Yeah.
I think the shift was the DAC videos and people realizing, wait a second. I can flex on you if my single blue fighting is good enough. It's the same mechanic. And so these top, you know, like, I don't remember his name, Golden Dragon dude, and the original Blademasters, you know, these videos would come out that just looked so cool. For me, it was Dak looked like a monk, and I was like a monk character. This is like before I was even a goblin. Like, it's that old. Sort of, same time. And that's how red fighting kind of changed. Out west, you know, you have Zale with a 9-foot glaive, super, super powerful. You have, you know, myself with red swords and Fumbles Tech and all of these different creators. Tordek made lots of glaives. Bamboo was a big thing for a long time, and we just kind of shifted and moved further and further into really technical fighting, mirroring what Florida was doing. And I think the big shift was when all of a sudden red swords with like the Dozer shield setup started winning War God tournaments fucking everywhere. All of a sudden, like, I don't know, 2019 or something, maybe it was.
Yeah, it was Dozer and I doing it.
There you go. All of a sudden, boom, 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 every fucking time. And it just spread like wildfire. And it really is a red scare, and it's still happening, and it's all over the country. And you've got incredible red fighters all over the place. You have a lot of foam red fighters that have gone to Steel who've done really well. You have a lot of foam fighters who went to HEMA or went to SCA who did really well, and you had a lot of those fighters that came to foam. So that's kind of the way I look at it, the like journey of foam fighting since the early 2000s with red swords specifically, or red weapons specifically.
I guess to add a little bit more history to it, I have Gorg in my backyard, comparatively. So, and also being on Kodos, which is the unit that Gorg Picnic and I run, we just had the red tech there, always ready to go.
Yeah.
And like having like Sons of Terra nearby too, like we had the big stick, the good, like the real good stick around the corner. and that really pushed us like, oh, these are the best sword boarders in the country. Well, if I'm gonna be a red fighter, I gotta learn to beat them. Gorg, make this. Okay, let's go.
That's a huge factor.
Horus, do you have any Midwest history for the for red fighting?
Yeah. It's actually really interesting hearing this, just because it's like the red has been such like a niche thing for a long time. Like when I started, I mean, people did use like big heavy reds, but you're really thinking more like glaives. Like there wasn't like a lot of red swords.
No.
The only people who were big into red swords were like Soth and Shao, and like they were just running around with these Kite Spar red swords, just snapping them on people. Like, and they weren't really like just breaking shields, you know. They were like coming in and like throwing like a flurry and like blocking a little bit and just crushing them. So, I mean, actually, my first ever like I know I'm learning experience in Belgarth was Soth running up to me and throwing like 4 shots and me blocking all of them and being like,
Yeah, Soth is
I
terrifying.
lived! Like, I lived! I'm not bad at this! Like, we'll get better! So, that was really cool. And that was, like, my first experience with it was, like, if you're going to use a red, you got to use the super light one, and you got to be 6 foot something and just, like, taller and faster than everyone.
Soth is terrifying.
Yeah. And so then a couple of years passed and I saw people start using like mini glaives. I feel like were the first like effective 1v1 red fight, because you could get a band shot pull mini glaive and you put a, you know, basically a sword blade at the end, and people did pretty well with it. And then my eventual knight and my good friend Frosty,
Yep, one of the OGs.
He's I mean, I'm sure that there's people who are better at like red v red fighting and probably even red v whatever fighting, but like back then there was no one who did what he did. He would go out there at the mini glaive in like 2011 and just 1v1 a sword and border, like complete Emir style, like Rogue Company at the time, like just block their shots, kill them, never give ground, or like never just get it rushed in. And then, you know, the one difference would be that, you know, he's not just going to block out really wide and then like continue to hit you. If you got really close to him, he would just knock you on the ground. He would check you really hard with that mini glaive and just throw you to the ground, because he's just a very uniquely built person, and that he's like a little taller than me, but like twice as big, and still moves just as fast on his feet. So he was really the only person that I saw kind of doing stuff like that. And I remember like I would try to use it and like I couldn't do that. And so I didn't really think about red fighting a lot. I mean, there were people using, like, Bo had some really cool Omni glaives, but they weren't that much lighter than any of the other tech. And so that was like, it was still kind of a niche thing. It wasn't super good. And then it wasn't until 2017 I got a mini glaive from Forged Foam, or from Gallon, and he wanted to try this out, and it was like a new core. It was a solid carbon core, and I still have this one because I busted my left shoulder throwing it out because I put an Omni on the end instead of a blade, and I didn't realize how heavy it was, and then I tried to lift it with my arm, and just COVID only healed that because I couldn't use my shoulder for 2 years. So that was the first time though that I picked it up and I was like, wow, this is light. Like, this is crazy. Like, I could use this red. Like, and I'm pretty strong, but I'm not like, I'm not no giant, you know. I'm 5'8" ish. And like, I can swing that, and like I could actually beat people 1v1, and it was pretty cool. And that was like, this is maybe like, and this is 2017, so there were people that had the tech now and were doing it, but it was really not in the Midwest that people were red fighting and really good at it. The only person out here that was good at it was like Avias, and he was sort of like from all over the country. So I got to spar him a bunch when he went to Night 4 practices. I don't even think that realm exists anymore. And he was incredible. He's a Blademaster, right? Yeah. And So I fought him a bunch, but you know, I remember him coming to Wolfpack opener with like a normal Kites Bar red sword, and just like people would charge him, and he would just like back up, spin, and chop their leg out from under them over and over and over again. I was like, that's such a good angle that like you'd never think to get, but the spin makes it work. But that's still like, it's very niche. You're not everybody's just gonna learn to like spin and chop legs over.
And not everybody should.
Yeah, and that's
I'm
kind
a
of,
big,
exactly.
I have
'cause I've done it a
opinions
bunch.
about spinning.
And it's hard. It's really hard to consistently do that. And even if you don't hit them in the face, like you can
Dude,
knock
I
yourself
have.
over, you can. Yeah. So I actually have a question for you about this this topic, though. I'll come back to it.
Sure.
But then COVID happened, dark times. We don't talk about that. At the end of COVID, I had bought the new Forged Foam Red and I got it from Gallon.
Oh, so fun.
And those, I've never used any like the Gorg Reds, but the new Forged Foam ones are like, they're everywhere now in the Midwest. Completely took off. Like everybody red fights. Everybody has one now. If they want a red, they use it. I have 3 of them now. I have 2 that I bought, and then one that Gallon gave me to test. That's like a 7-foot one. That thing's the most absurd red weapon I've ever used in my life. It's ridiculous. And it's incredible. Like, one, getting hit in the head with it still sucks, but way less dangerous, because it's so much lighter. Even though, I mean, you could build a 24-ounce red before, they never like handled like this. And then yeah, just the fact that everybody could have a light red, and the fact that everybody had started using back shields, which I think had been popularized earlier by spear fighters, but then, you know, started getting used by reds. You saw it way more. And now, you know, I expect if I go to like an Indiana event, what am I thinking of? Middlemarch, like War. Most of the people I fight are going to be red back shield. Like it's actually like probably like just as common as Sword and Border at this point. Yep. So it's been very interesting seeing red go from something that was like niche, where you had to have like very specific tech, you had to have a very specific body type, or you had to have very specific skills to use, to something that's like very common. Like tons of people red fight. There's a common language in red fighting. Like there's red fighting being taught to people as if it, you know, in the same way that rogues and Amir taught rogue theory. Like that's very cool to see. So it's been very interesting to see it grow over my fighting career, and I feel like red has changed the most out of everything. Over the long term.
Yeah, I think so too.
I can quickly give an Amtgard history of red fighting. There isn't much of one. So back in V5, V6, and I think V7, we still had a category that was called red. We still said red when we hit people. You know, and red was shield breaking in 3 hits, or armor breaking, or like 2 points off of armor. You know, for a long history of Amtgard, you know, and even really till present day, you didn't see a lot of greatswords. It's just not something you saw. You know, for several reasons. I think that in the actual game of Amtgard, when you're talking about the classes and stuff like that, it's just ineffective. 3 hits versus 2 for a shield sounds like not a big deal. It actually is it's a huge deal. Like, that extra hit takes a lot of the mustard out of being able to break shields with a red. The second thing is, like, you know, in Dag and Bell, you have 1 point of armor. You have armor, the red goes through it, you know, and so that's it, right? In Amtgard, you have up to 6 points of armor, and a lot of times, you know, having a greatsword or a red weapon doesn't convey any special benefits against it. So I remember there was a keep very recently that I went out there, and I had, you know, it was after I started learning about red fighting, and I had my mid-red greatsword, and I'm like, ha! And I hit somebody in the chest, and he goes, point! And, and just killed me, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this isn't going to work, is it? And so, it's kind of a struggle in that meta to use a weapon that doesn't hit multiple times really fast. In the early 2000s, we did see, and I was very guilty of this, we did see a lot of speed poles. So these were like 5-foot poles, very wiggly materials, not something that's not a stiff band shop, but something that had some flex to it. And then it was mostly just courtesy padding all the way up with like a short min length blade on the end. And I think that probably had the biggest parallel to red fighting, because we'd do things like we'd try to sneak. It was short enough that somebody could press on you pretty easily. So you would do things like back up, try to sneak, steal a shoulder, do a spin shot, things like that. So that's probably the closest Amtgard really came to like what red fighting is today, was that period in the early 2000s where there was just speed poles everywhere.
Yeah.
I know that there was a brief period of time, I think pre-COVID, where you started seeing people bring out some great swords that were like, and it was more like a niche weapon. It was more fun. And like people were like, I know this is bad, but I'm good enough that I will kill you with it. So there was less of any kind of advantage people were getting, and more they were fighting. It's like fighting with a quarterstaff, where you're like, I'm going to try to do something with this. And with the red fighting that you saw in Amtgard, there was a lot of there was crossbars. Everybody had like a cross, a cross on their crossguard on their sword, and that was like, it was considered that you're not doing it right if you don't have one. It's very important for the blocking that they would do, and you saw a lot of fakes to the shoulder. That was kind of like pocket stab, fake the pocket stab, go over to the sword's board side shoulder. There was a whole bunch of that, and then now with the Belgarth influence that and the cross gaming and the TikToks and everything, you're starting to see, especially cross gamers, use actual red swords, use red techniques, and it's starting to cross over in some of the ditches and stuff. And a lot of the Amtgard warlords are kind of saying like, hey, this is pretty cool. I want to learn more about this.
Fun.
It's so fun.
It's so fun.
And I think you're just going to start seeing more and more of that. That's a brief Amtgard history for it. Thank you, Casey. Thanks for the subs that you've gifted. Appreciate it.
Antoinette too.
And Antoinette, thank you as well. We're gonna head back to the agenda here. We've got history of red fighting. We talked about how you got into red fighting. I feel like we kind of covered that topic. Unless you're holding anything back for that. Are you guys holding anything back for how you got into it? Probably not. No.
Not really.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it looks cool.
It does look cool. Let's talk about how you red fight, and we're going to start with Fox. And you talked about your defensive style a little bit, but let's talk about how
I sure can after a ad break.
Quick
break. Oh, we got an ad break?
Yeah.
Ad break.
Quick ad break.
Oh, you got.
I've drank a half a gallon of water in the last hour.
Go do your thing.
Gotta hydrate.
Horace, let's talk. While Fox is draining his Fox, let's talk about how.
Hey, rhymes.
Let's talk about what we're doing next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch. If we pull open the where is it? Let's go to the Google Doc, which I'm totally unprepared for right now. Doc. Not that doc, the Google Doc.
Oh shit, I opened Sheets, not Docs.
Oh yeah. We don't want to be in Sheets. I added a whole bunch to your list. There's a lot here.
No, wait. What do I...
So we've got... I'm just going to start listing shit. And chat... Here, let's go to chat. Let's have the chat chime in what they want to see. Footwork. Knocking people down. How to review tape. Red fighting. We're doing that. Single sword. Two sword. Sword and board spear. Outsiders and newcomers. So people outside of the game, people that are kind of like new to the game. How do they perceive it? Playing to your strengths, simple versus trick shots, pacing and patience, mental games. What kind of fighter are you? Field and terrain control, pace the field. Hold on, if you like something, hold on to it. Maintaining forward momentum, training games to play at practice, the dangers of sparring and pelling too long. That's very niche. Physical fitness, multi-person tactics, pole arms, tournament formats, weapon tech, event layout and procedures like field battles, nightlife, field fighting versus tourney fighting, group tourneys, tournament best practices for organizers and competitors, the old days of the Wild West, different units. I want to do that. I don't want to do that now, but I am really ready to do the old days and get some like 1990s people on here. That'd be fun. Different unit structure, night discussions, artificers, player retention, player recruitment, the bench invitational. Any of those really stand out? Ooh, I like that. Fight recovery for old people. I'm adding that. That's good, Gorg. Fighting while old.
If I could stop my elbows from hurting, I'd do it.
Hell yeah, Gorg. Any of those sound good? I like the idea of tourney foo. I like the idea.
Like swords, no boards.
Swords, no boards.
I like to live like any second my life could end and not have the wall in front of me to protect me.
Two sword. I want to put off two sword for a while because I want to get Aaron here for that, but he's not actually on the bench, so we got to wait a little bit and get our bench people on.
If we do it for a little while, he'll come on.
I've already talked to him about it. He said he will if his schedule allows.
Good. He's fun.
Injury prevention in general, how to stay healthy. Do we want to talk about that? Karai's tagged in for two sword. We got our two sword team figured out.
Sweet. I'm so excited for that. I love two sword.
We want to do do we want to go generic and go sword and board? I feel like that's like the obvious place that we should go. Or we could do something interesting like injury prevention and stuff like that. Or tournaments.
Who are we gonna? If we do sword and board, we got to do it on the day that we can get Bell to do it.
I agree. Yeah, I think Bell should be there for sword and board.
He beat the fuck out of me at Armageddon. I was not happy.
He's so good.
I mean, I was happy because it never happens anymore, and it feels good to feel like I have something to strive for. But holy shit, has that not happened in a while?
I was thinking like my initial pick for somebody on sword and board would be Karai, but Karai, she wants to do two sword. Spicy would be a good pick for sword and board. P1 and or Abu would be good picks for that. I don't know, because P1's good at sword and board, like for sure. But P1 does sword and board weird. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for talking about sword and board.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We'll do some.
I see him.
Are we going for sword and board? Is that what we're doing? Maybe. How to be competitive, not toxic. I don't know how to do that.
No, that's easy. Do you want a primer right now?
Let's do it.
Just fight really hard, and then when you feel like your ego's taking a hit, you just fucking ignore it because your ego doesn't matter at all. Like you're either here to learn and have fun, or you're here to be a dick to people. Like there's only two choices. Just don't do that one.
Be so good that you inspire people and make them do better than you do.
I know how to not be toxic.
I don't know how to
be
better.
I don't know how to be competitive. That's what I don't know how to do.
Oh.
You and I can both practice that.
All right, so What do we think?
Do sword and board.
Sword and board.
Sure. Bell.
Done. Sword and board. If Bell can do it. If not, we'll do one of the other two.
Sure.
All right. Let's look at our agenda. And we've got, how do you red fight? Oops. How do you red fight? Let's start with Fox.
So, like I was saying before, defensive fighting has turned more into denial fighting for me. As some people in a unit called Floriboros like to explain it, is that I will fight you, we'll tap swords, and then we play block strike until I win. Where it ends up being a situation where it's like, we are going to throw a pattern of shots, like what Gord was saying, a volley of back and forth. But every time that the volley goes back and forth, I gain an advantage, and you've lost something.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's either I'm encroaching on you by footwork, or I'm throwing shots that are faster, or engaging in a different direction, or throwing fakes or feints that you may not be understanding are fakes and fakes because you're focused on the block strike that I started.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing could also be is I'm not a big person. I'm 5'5", and I don't typically have a lot of like intense aura of like, I am this crazy strong person who's going to obliterate the whole field. I'm just a guy. I blocked your shot and killed you. Let's fight again. I like, Court, I guess because like you've just, in the grand scheme of things, just recently met me in Florida. I'm not crazy out there. I'm kind of a modest guy.
Yeah, no, you're subdued. You're just really fucking good.
So a lot of my fighting actually came from the idea of, if I have my buckler, what does my buckler cover? What does it not cover? Cover what doesn't it cover? Then don't worry about my buckler. It protects me. Throw a shot afterwards. If I'm not using a buckler, how do I make my hands into a buckler? And that's where the idea of, instead of fighting forward, where a lot of people who are new red fighting, I started fighting sideways profile, looking over my shoulder, having my body perpendicular to my opponent. Then I started working on footwork to match that style, where instead of engaging forward by having my feet move forward, I actually kind of almost crab walk against the opponent, where I use lateral movement by going forward. And by going forward, I do lateral movement. So in the grand scheme of things, moving left and right is easier than moving forward for me. Which, in the long term, kills people, because they expect to engage and disengage, not the left and right movement. That's kind of the elevator pitch of how I fight. I like using shorter reds instead of longer reds. I think anything bigger than 6 foot kind of doesn't work. I win polearm tournaments because I stab people.
Why I win polearm tournaments, like, yep.
It's not necessarily I'm swinging at them; I'm just stabbing them. But Greatsword is always fun because it's just a chess match against people. Like the video between Ragefire and I've watched that so many times at the end of Armageddon. And Lester's even put it as kind of like the prime example of how does a righty versus a lefty fight at the highest tier, and how do they just mind games each other until it just becomes wacky stacks, and we were just hitting the shit out of each other. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's great.
It is
Gord,
great.
don't use that language. That doesn't suit you.
I don't think it suits you at all, Gord.
What are we supposed to watch?
The Armageddon short red final was extraordinary and very fun to watch.
Yeah. That's, like I said before, that's the elevator pitch. We could go on hours about talking about how each other fight, but we also have a time limit.
Makes sense. Cord, how do you fight? How do you red?
Yeah, so it depends entirely on the length of the red I use, and it's evolved a lot. In fact, it's evolved a lot in the last year. I have Aridin at my practice, and he and I go back and forth all the time. It's one of the reasons I can't consider myself a mediocre red fighter, is because he's who I fight all the time. I am a reactive counter fighter, except when I fight with a red. I will go right through you. That's my philosophy. I'm going to go through you. Either I'm going to close really hard, or I will bait the shot take a block, and then go right into you. Angles are great. I use angles again. With a shorter red sword, I'm a big block, throw, cross. I fight with basics. Anytime I try to do something cool like Fox does, I hurt myself. So I fight with basics, right? I'm not going to throw spins very often. I'm not going to throw one-handed wraps. I'm just going to out-basics you. I really do like to switch. Like, here's a tell for everybody. If I'm fighting you, now you can beat me. If I'm going to stab you, I often switch my hands because I find that it's easier. I'll just switch my hands and then, right? And it works really, really well. If I'm using anything over 55 inches, I'm going to stab the ever-living fuck out of you. Up until very recently, every real red tournament I've won with an actual competitive group of people has been with a pole. That one, it's a 7-foot glaive. Because if I fight an 8-foot, I use it like a red sword. And if I fight a red sword, I use it like a spear. Right? I think red sword, you said it perfectly, Fox. Red sword fighting is chess. And it's why it's so utterly fun. I don't know anything that gets me going in terms of like sword fighting more than red on red. Red on versus swordboard is fun. It's a different game. There's a couple different ways of playing it. Like I'm a caster. I'll cast. I'll take your leg, and then I'll make you fuck up. Because I don't want to get run down. I've been shield checked in the face so many times. But that's kind of how I read. It's a lot of the volley. You know, if I'm fighting a fighter who is either less good than me or I think they're less good than me, I might try to just pick them, you know, with a one shot fancy shit. Like I love stabs. I have so many stabs into the upper quadrant. But ultimately, when I'm fighting Fox or Aridin, it's exactly what Fox said. We're going to be playing block strike until one of us makes a mistake, and that's my favorite thing to do in Bell.
I know what it is, but what's a cast for the people who are new to this?
When I'm casting, the way I do it is I cast crossbody. So some people do like.
Well, just let's say somebody's brand new, like they don't.
I have 2 hands on a weapon. I'm going to use one hand to push the sword, hold the sword with the other hand, let go, and use one hand to swing across the body. It's faster because I'm using usually my upper hand to push and my lower hand to pull, so it's this motion, right? This motion, but into a cast. So when I do this hand then lets go, and it just flies. So you can go from here into a cast that way. Doesn't matter whichever hand you want for, lower, but that's what's going to go. Upper hand usually pushes, bottom hand usually pulls or casts into some kind of shot. That's how I would explain it. I don't know, Fox, if you explain
it. If we want to get to the history of terminology, it comes from fishing.
Yeah.
You do this with the pole, but you just let go. Originally, casting came from shoulders, but then we're like, wow, just cast for leg because you got the range.
Yeah, that's what I like.
I almost exclusively do one-handed things with my left hand on bottom, just so I could do it faster.
Yeah.
Just let go, top hand throw. Swords are light enough, become strong enough to just throw that way. You can switch hands for fakes and do different things. I'm well known for throwing a really big one-handed wrap around.
It's crazy!
All the way around kind of thing. And that just came from me throwing casts all day with my left hand. And they're like, well, what if I just do a wrap? Do it again and do it again. And I saw Avias do it. It's like, wow, I can do it like that. I'm doing it even faster. Do it faster. And it's like, oh, I have a buckler. I could throw it behind my shield. And it's like fighting swordboard.
It really is. It's
but crazy. I got a 5-foot sword.
Explain the foot orientation aspect of it.
Depends on how you're casting.
Okay.
Yeah, which hands?
I'll typically go sword foot forward if my right hand is up, and then as I cast, I'll switch my feet. But I'm a weirdo, so.
Whichever hand is on the bottom of the sword is your forward foot.
Okay.
So, if I'm right hand forward, I will take a left foot step in, let go of my top hand, and throw, and that gives me as much physical range as possible with a sword.
Okay. Horus, how do you red fight?
I find that I rarely ever actually get to red v red, which is funny because I was doing that on Wednesday, and all my videos of me red fighting are red v red, but that's very rare in my experience. I usually fight against other boardmen on a line, and I kind of bring a single sword mentality to it. I've never really had any people around that had a red sword kind of there's no like history to draw on, you know, like people are so disparate in times. There's no community like that out here as much. So I I tend to fight like a missile. Like I think that if you stop when you're red sword fighting because you clip somebody in the head or you're questioning something, like people just hit you. So you just have to keep going and be like pretty much as brutal as possible and keep fighting until you're dead. You can always call late if you're a little slow on something. So I tend to sort of fight the same way that you would single sword against a boardman, where you're trying to get them to do something or commit to something that lets you then swing at them. And the nice thing about the red sword is that your sword is longer than theirs, so you're going to be able to swing at them first. So I start by faking out of range as I start to step in, and then once you do that, you gotta pay attention to what their feet are doing, because if they're just gonna charge you, you don't need to step in. In fact, you should step offline, either to the left or the right, depending on the person. I don't like stepping towards people's sword sides, but that I'm interested to try doing that, and see, you know, based on some of the conversations that we were having earlier, if that would work better, because my thought process is like a boardman, I guess, where you don't want to be near their sword. The further away from their shoulder socket you are, the less possible it is for them to even hurt you. So I tend to step off towards the right and then continue to fight their sword. I like also tend to have my left hand down. That feels right, and it feels better versus red sword fighters. But I think versus boardsmen, it's almost better to always just match your sword into their sword side, where your sword hand is actually the one that it's less convenient to block with, because it feels more like fighting a lefty, where you just want the ability to like quickly deliver your strikes at their sword side, because their sword is the threat. Most of the time I'm fighting a boardman. Most of the time they want to rush me. But I am also sort of taking this block strike mentality, where I'm faking and doing something, and when I'm using the red sword, the advantage of it versus the single sword or whatever is that you're on a timer when you fight me. I can block strike forever and I never lose my equipment, but if you're block striking me and you keep blocking with your shield and I keep redding it, your shield goes away. And so that's how I tend to fight, is to like fight this one person until their shield goes away or they die, and then fight the next person and do the same thing, and just basically continue that sort of momentum. And it's a very like weird fine line, because you can't really like run the line with the red the same way you can with everything else, because being close to them is danger and death, and you need to protect yourself at all times more than you really need to swing at them. But that's kind of how I think about it, is like this is a single sword fight where I have a weapon that puts you on a time limit, and any time that I get a free shot on you that you don't have a way to swing at me and endanger me, if I don't have something open, then I'm just gonna swing and hit your shield until it's gone, and then I'm gonna kill you.
Makes sense. I would say that I've already been called out for this, but I would say that I fight red as a combination of stabby stab. I stab a ton, and I do amp guard stuff because that's where I came up. So I'll fake low, go high, hit the shoulder, stuff like that. Definitely have been taught some tricks, things like grave diggers and going sword side board, things like that. And then I also, I do fight Goofy Foot when I'm redding. I cast a lot, because of my blue influence, so I'll do a lot of casting. I'll do, I'll throw some outside wraps with my left, try to hit a swordman on the arm or something like that. Let's talk, because we're getting a little low on time. Let's head back to our agenda here. Let's talk red safety. red safety.
So Cord and I are kind of these people who very much believe that red is an important part of the game, but also very important to be safe in the game as well. And like we both talked about like before about like the avalanche of red fighters who have come into the sport from availability or seeing things on YouTube or whatever aspect of like, oh, cool, red people are cool, red people are do stuff like this. I know there's some realms who are like, oh, you can't red fight until you've done single sword for 3 practices. Then you also have to do 3 practices of sword and board or spear, and then you have to like level up to red fighting. But then you get the red sword, and they're like, cool, now I'm going to swing. And they still never learned what it means to red fight safely. So I've put a lot of videos out about red fighting and our spar practices, and I've been making videos about kind of 101 fights and like classes of like how to fight safely. Like I did a spins video against before I even knew Cord, but I made a spins video, which people have quoted a lot, but it's just basic how to spin safely. But I think it's also important for people who are Blademasters or Knights, people with peerage to talk about safety, because if I hit someone and they're out of the game, they're out of the game. I can't hit them anymore.
That sucks. Don't break your toys.
Don't break your friends or your toys. Yeah. If I snap a sword, I feel sad. But if I hurt someone, I feel even worse. But for me, it's like if I'm going to teach someone new red fighting, there's always a mantra of like keep diagonals, not straight down. But it's also about your footwork and also your idealism of how you're engaging a fight too. When I teach someone new about red fighting, it's more about hit the person behind the sword, not the location. Think about where their sword is in relation to the opponent, and then hit past that. Or hit on the other side of it. If you see someone who's fighting and they're very diagonally positioned, then hit the corner they're not blocking. My basic elevator pitch that I said before of like how to teach someone who's new about red fighting is that when you hold a red sword in your hands, if you're right hand top, left hand bottom, or vice versa, you divide your body into thirds. You have 2/3 of your body, in my case, my left side of my body. And then you have 1/3 on your right side of your body. The lesser of the thirds is the easier target, the safer target, that's for all situations. So if I'm fighting against someone who's right-handed fighting, I'm right-hand fighting, it's a cross shot. It's very difficult to hurt someone if you throw a cross with red versus red. And if for lefty versus righting, it's just a chop. Their sword is between you and their opponent. You use their equipment as a shield to protect the person that you're fighting against. I also won't fight people if they're not wearing gloves. Like, if I know them and they've signed the Ryan waiver,
there's only one. There's only one. It's Farron.
Yeah. If they've signed the waiver of I am fine with fighting you without gloves on, I ask them 3 more times.
Dude,
then I'll fight.
Farron blew my mind. I was like, I come to Florida, and there's this one dude who fights with Ebon Light, who is Ebon Light. He's the only sword and border in Ebon Light, and he doesn't wear fucking gloves. And I'm like, I've sunk every knuckle in my fingers red fighting, and I wear gloves.
What's even better is that he has worn gloves, but only twice. One was for Dozer's Warden trial, who's one of the hardest hitting people to sport kind of thing, and my final Blademaster trial.
Yeah, I've been hit by you, I know.
And I was not pulling punches on any of my friends.
Novice Kung Fu says he calls them bitch mittens.
Hell yeah. Bad for the sport, but hell yeah.
Aaron's nuts. Yeah.
God.
Red safety is literally the most important thing on the combat side of this game for me. Safety in general. We are 100% playing a combat game. I like to call it a sport, quite frankly. It is honor-based, and we our referees are kind of not to say heralds are bad, but it's an honor-based game ultimately. The fighters are going to talk it out. But it's a sport, and I view it as such. And if you're going to go play baseball or soccer or, steel fighting, for fuck's sake, or MMA, you're going to have some sort of required protection and some sort of thing that you can't do. And I don't like, and this is my own soapbox, but I don't like that we say, headshots are an inevitable reality. If headshots are an inevitable reality, which, yeah, they kind of are, we should require helmets. Do I always wear a helmet? No. Am I a hypocrite? Yes. But ultimately, that's this game we're playing. Headshots happen. Those aren't good. Minor concussions, etc. here's where I think the safety really matters. When you go from I have a stick to I have a fucking weapon, because in a home invasion situation, if I stab you in the throat with any of my like swords, not my bats, but my swords, you're down. Like, yes, the throat is an illegal target. I'm gonna ask, has anybody here never been hit in the throat?
10 times.
I got hit in the throat last week, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got hit in the eye last week and almost had to go to the hospital. So it's like, shit happens. When shit happens with a blue sword, ouch, man. Oh, God, are you okay? If it's a spear or a red weapon, or if you full draw 10 feet to my face with a bow, I'm done, and I could be done for 6 months. And I have people that are very dear to me that are done permanently because one dude decided to, sprint at him and stab him in the back really hard with a spear. The red swords, the force generation, especially for the heavier ones, it's too easy to hurt someone. And then when you take the mentality of I'm going to win, there's one exception where I don't hold this. In a trial, I'm going to fuck you up. But if it's not a trial, I don't care what the situation is, unless you're in a trial or I'm in the trial. Either way, my objective when I fight is I'm going to keep my opponent safe. Mm-hmm. They're going to keep me safe. I know that's not the case, so I'm going to keep myself safe. But I'm going to push it forward and make it so that all of my opponents are safe when fighting me. If you come to my practice, the chances of me fighting with a spear are small. I don't want to hurt my friends. If you come to my practice, you're going to find I don't hit very hard. Trust me, I can, right? Like, I had a conversation with Murray and we talked about it. Datsun, he's a Blademaster. And I remember one of the first times he met me, he was like, man, you just got to swing really hard and swing fast with him in red. And I was like, you really don't, but okay. And he kind of got into it a little bit. I'm not going to get into it with him. He's 3 times my size. And I love him. And he's amazing. And then after Frostbane, he comes up to me. I think it was at Orc Wars or something. He goes, Cord, you got to watch your shot calibration. I was like, what? He's like, dude, my fingers still hurt. And I'm like, where are gloves? I was. See? So it really comes down to, it's a choice that as a red user I'm going to make. I'm never going to blast you to the best of my ability. I'm not, when I teach a new fighter, dude, it's beyond throw angles. It's don't throw above the fucking elbow. Why? Yes, shoulders are cool and they're sexy and they're fun and they miss all the fucking time for advanced fighters. Right? If Aridin and I are going at it, it is possible that we're going to hit each other in the face, and we're good at this game, right? But we're trying for this like upper quadrant, snap down. It's so cool. Don't fucking do it in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. And I like the philosophy of teaching new fighters to not try to break shields, because when you teach someone this is how you have to swing to break a shield, right? Mm-hmm. And the flip side is it's a conversation with sword and borders. Just like when I'm spear fighting. And I've had this happen. I'll stab someone, they'll go light, and I'll cock my head and I go, I can hit harder than that. And usually they end up taking it. With a sword and border, if I'm a sword and border and you're redding me, I'm probably going to take pretty light red shots. Tournaments aside. Tournament, trial, right? Why? Because I don't want to encourage people to have the thought, I have to hit you harder. I have to swing as hard as I can. Because Jesus criminy, the amount of times it's skimmed off of a shield, I've watched this happen, I've had it happen, I've done this to somebody, right? Where it skims off a shield, off a weapon, goes right up into their face. It's often and it's common. And then I'm going to get off my high horse. But guys, learn to pull your shots. Learn to have the fast enough reaction time, especially if you're going to spear a red fight, to go, that's bad. That's not a good shot, or they're moving in a funny way. I'm going to not swing. I'm going to almost swing. I'm going to pull the shot and do something to lessen the force, because you have a responsibility to your combatant opponent to keep them safe.
Should gloves be mandatory? Maybe at events?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah? Horus says yeah. Fox?
I don't know. That's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Why is it hard?
Like, I don't know that they should be mandatory for archers.
Say you're going to enforce that you got to wear gloves. How protective do your gloves need to be?
So that's fair. Maybe we can't say that, right? But I still think everybody should wear fucking gloves, and I think
you're not getting any argument out of me there. I think
it should either be a hockey glove or a lacrosse glove. You know what? As someone who doesn't often, you're right. I should. Wayward killed me.
Hey man, it's written on my chart. Testicular pain never goes away. So wear a cup, man. It's not worth it.
It's not.
Should shoes be mandatory at events?
Yes, and I say that because I had Valis of the Urkai, Western Urkai, stomp on my foot. I'm not gonna blame him and say it was intentional. It was in a trial. I wasn't wearing shoes. It was my stupid choice, and he shield checked me over while stepping on my foot. The fact that I didn't break my foot's incredible. The reality is, many people, even if they're not supposed to, do wear cleat-like shoes. Mongoose is one of them. If you're barefoot and that goes on your foot, it's not good. It's just not. We're playing.
I was fighting someone in Amp-Guard actually, and I was wearing no shoes, and I was chasing after them, and they were running backwards, and they had made a sudden stop, and my foot went into their shin, and my toes went apart. It was like my pinky toe.
Oh God!
And that was some of the most pain I've ever been ever. And it's like, if I was wearing shoes, that wouldn't have happened. He would have been in pain. But it's just like, now I wear shoes all the time because I don't want my toes to separate like that.
Yeah, that's awful. Ooh. Let's we got about 25 minutes left or so. Let's take it to the chat. Oops, wrong chat. Where are we at? There we go. Let's take it to the chat, and let's hear from the chat. See if you have any questions for our Blademaster, our Warmaster, or me and Horus. Let's see if we have any questions about red fighting specifically, or just questions in general.
Mabel, you're right. No free feet.
No free feet. How is there a debate on whether we should wear protective gear over some of the most easily broken bones?
Because people make choices, and they are independent, and they get to.
People make choices.
I don't know that there's a debate over whether you should wear them or not. I think there's a debate over whether we should force people to wear them and how that enforcement works and what that looks like.
The game being Belagarth, it's not going to happen, because the moment you try to enforce something from somebody, it
yeah.
Telegram.
The best thing that you can possibly do is to wear it yourself and encourage other people to wear it and set a good example.
I'm a fan of the eye cage. I like the eye cage. I keep forgetting to wear mine, but
consider getting an eye cage. I typically use helmets, but it's scary, man. Eyeballs are not. I'll help you write it, sister.
You know, so here's a funny story. I don't know if this is funny. This is a little TMI. I'm gonna deal with it. So nut shots are awful. You know, anyone born with testicles can confirm that. They have gotten so significantly less awful for me because as a 44-year-old person that was born male, I was, you know, I had to start testosterone therapy when I turned 40. And so my balls are smaller now, so I don't get hit in them as often. So it's not as bad.
Congrats, man.
You know what?
Congratulations to you. What a superpower. New bonus.
Pro strat, shrink the balls.
Pro strat, shrink your balls. You heard it first here. Pro strat, shrink your balls. You also have to take Viagra before all of your tournaments.
Oh God,
that's the way. You have to do both of those things: shrink your ball and take Viagra. It gives you more energy.
I love all
those gas station boner pills are too strong.
Shit, man, they did it out west for a little bit.
Oh no!
I think it was old school God Squad for a little bit down at Pittsburgh. Did that? Convinced people to do that.
I love the trans women in the chat going like, I have the same issue, but it's different.
It's different.
Let's see. Did we have any questions before we had a testicular avalanche of comments?
Yeah, there was a question earlier about asking people like, why is the forward shield on your shoulder using a crossbody strap called a dozer buckler?
Because it's dozer.
Because it's Blademaster dozer. The story goes is that he asked Gorg like, hey, I want you to make like 15 shields for me, all different sizes, all different shapes, different strap orientations, and the 24-inch middle straps crossbody shoulder was the one that stuck. and he went through all of the processes to figure which one he liked, and that was the one that stuck. And then he went and won a million War God tournaments, and he taught me how to use it. And then I won a bunch of War God tournaments, and that kind of progressed that. And it's also Gorg's marketing. Dozer wins a bunch of tournaments with it. Why not call the Dozer buckler?
It's smart.
I'm not a fan of leather straps. I use a laptop bag strap that has adjustable buckles on it for my shoulder bucklers, and then I always get the Gorg extra strap for the arms.
Nice.
Product placement.
There was a question of, are we allowed to wear helmets? We're absolutely allowed to wear helmets.
I do often.
You can wear like a regular like sports helmet. That is totally legal. You can also wear a helmet that is like more medieval in nature, like a leather helmet, a metal helmet, or something like that. And you actually get an in-game benefit.
Metal helmets.
Say again?
Yes,
if it's not if it's a full helm.
I thought it got changed like a year ago.
That did not pass. Good
Or was
sir.
that, where's
like
that top
a metal cap.
I can have a metal cap, but I can't
Okay,
have
but you
a
can't
full
have metal
helmet.
face.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could
I'm
always
just-
wear the
you're
metal
gonna
cap. You
mess-
just can't have the metal face.
You're gonna mess somebody up with one of those if you miss. My steel helmet's fucking 18 pounds or something crazy like that. You know.
I could have sworn at Ockfest I saw somebody in a full metal hat, but maybe not.
If it's passed and if people get away with it, are not the same thing.
Interesting. So no, you can't wear metal helms. Correction. But you can wear leather ones, and you do actually get an in-game like benefit from that. If somebody shoots you with an arrow and hits you in the head, and it hits your
Face
helmet,
block.
you're good.
Yeah,
You're fine.
that
It
is
doesn't
a
count.
Shield for arrows.
I love it. That's so
historically
fun.
accurate too.
Yep.
It's so very fun.
It's fantastic. So, some of you have seen my unicorn helm. I have. It's like a rainbow leather hat. I've got a unicorn mane coming out the back and unicorns on the cheeks. And funny story, the first time I wore it, I went to the indoor ones. You were talking about it earlier, the indoor
Wolfpack?
opener. Wolfpack, yeah. I went to Wolfpack, and I got my brand new helmet, and it looks like a brony helmet. I'm like, yeah! And so I roll out onto this field, and the first thing that happens is an arrow just goes, shoo, hits me right in the mouth, misses the helmet completely, and I'm just like, the fuck did I just spend like $150 on this thing? Like, why?
Oh man.
Well, we heard it here first, folks. Forkbeard was the first to use the shoulder shield per Gorg. And I think that's funny because that motherfucker used to swing a red axe so terrifying. Holy crap! No, I remember that shield. That was cool. Forkbeard was terrifying with a red. Those big people are terrifying.
We got an Olos
Wait,
mention
I can wear
too.
a full metal helmet now.
I don't. Well, okay. I am happy
this
to
real
say that
life?
I am wrong, and I'm also happy to say I don't like it.
Everyone's gonna hate me.
You hear that, buddy? You hear that? You want to come out and play next time? Yeah, I do. I'm talking to my helmet in the background if it's not obvious. That's actually a historical helmet, like an actual antique that my dad picked up at some show or something. I don't know. I'm not actually going to wear that to a Belgarth event. It's got pointy horns on it, so that's not going to happen.
Oh my god.
So I do got an announcement.
Let's hear it.
And Gorg reminded me, is that at Equinox, Cord is going to gain Masterhood for Chronicle. So you guys should go to EQ and congratulate Cord.
Yeah, it'll be good fun. Thank you.
Congrats.
Yeah,
Congrats.
I'm happy to
Congrats.
talk Warmaster, talk guild stuff, but today was about Reds.
So the next question that came up is, who's your favorite person to red fight, to one-on-one with?
That's changed throughout the years. I think when I was in college, Mowgli was my favorite fight.
Who was it? Say it again.
His name is Mowgli. He didn't travel much out of California, just Chaos Wars a couple times. Incredible fighter. I have to admit, though, since I'm moving to Florida, I think if I saw Fox more often, this answer might be different, but it's Aridin. I really enjoy fighting Aridin. He's so very good. He's very talented. He's very fast. And he and I can fight Red Sword for 3 or 4 hours straight, and neither of us is going to walk away hurt. And I value that very strongly. I fought Luster, and I love Luster, and I think Luster is one of the coolest people I've ever seen. Crash is really fun to fight, and I really like fighting Wayward too. But when I fight Luster, if I allow Luster to, he will make my goblin elbows go numb. And you know what? As much as some people might think I'm into it, I'm not. And so really it comes down to like, who do I think the hardest fight is? That's a different question. But the most enjoyable is a red fighter that I'm going to fight and be able to fight for hours and hours and hours. Like Bacon. I fought Bacon and I fought Fox at a Kodos mass, and we fought for a long time. And neither of us got hurt. And neither of us walked away sore, and we were not swinging lightly, you know. But no one's calling light. No one's going, "Oh, you don't hit hard enough." It's like enjoyable, and also we don't walk away like, "Fuck." I mean, okay, sometimes you land a stanky stab, or you like, but that's not the point. So Aridin takes that for me right now. Part of it is that Fox, you're too far away.
Fair. Florida is so big that
It's
I'm
big.
4-ish, 5-ish hours from you.
It's big.
I love Pancake Witch says, "Don't build up Luster. He can't even make himself food."
He can't.
That might be true. But look, there's a handful of fighters in my 14-year Belagarth career who have insta-made my arms go numb. The very first to do it was Melee Moses. I'll never forget it. I was red fighting, and he just wrapped me, and my arm went. The next person to do it was the Vanilla Gorilla. Yes. Yeah. The next person to do it was the same fucking battle, even. And it was Alexi. And if you don't know Alexi, he was really short. I think he was like an Olympic fencer. I don't know. And maybe he did steroids. That's allegedly. I don't have a clue. He was so really strong. He hit so hard. Again, arm. And then I came to Florida. And I'm like, I want to fight the Blademasters. Fought Aridin good. You know, Ragefire's the sword guy. Fought him. Fought Fox. Fought all of these amazing. I haven't fought Ragefire yet. I'm so sad about that. Ragefire, if you're watching, I want to fight you so badly. And I fought Luster. And my elbow just went, bye-bye. I got flashbacks to Moses. Because, like, let's be honest. When you have that much force and that much strength and a little sword and it goes into a goblin elbow either gets turned on or turned off. Thankfully, mine gets turned off, but, you know, we're not going to go there. Yeah, Luster is powerful. Fastest hands of anybody I think I've ever fought is Luster. I have fast hands.
Lightning.
Luster blasted me at Geddon with a brand new min red sword. It was brand new. It was about as stiff as a board, and he blasted me to elbow with it. I'm like, oh god! And then he's like, did that hurt, Tanny? I'm like, yes, it did. He's like, I'll put that down for now. I was like, okay. Fox, who's your favorite red fight 101?
I really enjoy fighting Blademaster. Why am I an idiot?
Avias?
No.
Bacon in the background is top tier.
No, the cat. Yeah, Zen distracted me.
That's such a good cat name.
Blademaster Sir Fane.
Oh, Fane's such a fun fight! Holy crap! Oh my goodness! Yeah. And he's another one. You can fight him for hours, and he won't hurt you. But man, if you're, I've seen that motherfucker swing, and if he wants to hurt you, you're hurt.
Oh, he sure can.
Oh, he's such a lovely fight.
Yeah, he likes it. He throws the stank on me.
Maybe look, there's stank, and then there's lust.
Fair.
Okay, stank is fine. You throw stank.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, Fane is he is probably the most true ambidextrous fighter in the sport. He could fight both right and lefty with red, completely fluid. There is no preference, there is just no whatever, and he's, in my opinion, the best bull fighter in the sport. I know you have your friend in the West Coast, I haven't met him yet, so I can't make the determination, but from who I've seen...
He's really freaking good. There's zero question. There's zero
Fane is incredible pull arm. Also one of the most respectful guy. He has ear-to-ear green fighting the entire time.
Yes.
When you fight red versus red, and it just makes me feel so good that we could just have a great time. Now he's in Florida too, so now we got Florida. It's just red Mecca all over again.
We're supposed to be moving out of Florida and spread that through the country.
Now we came from outside of the country as red fighters to Florida. It just drew us in.
Yeah. The answer, Antoinette, I have finally met Sir Fox for the first time at Geddon. We were like, hey, knew a lot about you. All heard a lot about you too. Watched him beat up some kids. It's like, cool. and then he had to go. I was like, all right, next time.
Oh, you watch.
He's a good dude.
You know who a really good red fighter is who doesn't get talked enough about is Zarl. Zarl, the Hellhammer Zarl, is
Yeah.
a really, really fucking good red fighter. So fun to fight. Yeah.
Horus, who's your favorite red fight?
Okay.
And tell me why it's not Frosty.
Frosty doesn't fight red anymore. You
I
guys
know,
will
it's
never
so
get to
sad.
experience the fucking
I have.
destruction machine.
I
Yeah.
have. He taught me a lot of what I know.
I really like fighting Glass. He's my go-to. We fight a lot. I really like fighting Avias. He's probably like the best actual like red sword specific fighter that I like fighting. But my favorite red sword fighter to fight is actually Takis. Because Takis is like fighting a fucking Dark Souls boss. Because he swings so fucking hard. It's unreal.
Go
like,
fight Luster.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's like yeah. I can't imagine fighting any other giant red users any different than fighting
Luster's
Takis,
small,
except they're
that's the
probably
thing.
like got more technical skill. But
No, big red fighters are terrifying.
yeah,
Terrifying.
Takis is an absolute monster.
Thank you, Bugbear Mage, for subscribing. Appreciate it.
Bugbears are around. I don't know how I feel about that. Yo, Joe Mick uses single blues. They're just red. He
They're
uses
big.
2 single blues, okay?
Uh-huh.
They're just red swords.
So I'm actually gonna my favorite red fight of all time, and so then therefore my favorite person to red fight. I'm gonna say Luster. I'm actually gonna say it. And I gotta tell the story too. It's important. So I'm at Winter War, and at that time, I have since decided that my body will not be able to handle the ascent to Blademaster, so I've given it up. But at that time, I was trying to apprentice under Blademaster Fox, and Fox gave me this this task of like I have to fight 10 Blademasters or their apprentices and record it, and we're going to review the footage and whatnot. So here's how I imagine it going down: is I imagine that there's some discussion in the red community that, hey, this fucking Tanith Warlord Ampguard bullshit is trying to encroach on our fighting style here, and has been doing some first to tens and has been winning a lot of them. And so, you gotta get a piece of this person, because that's the vibe I felt from Luster, was just kind of like, all right, let's see what's happening here. And I would say by the end he won 10-9, and by the end of it, we were just grinning ear to ear and just like profusely sweating. I was in a lot of pain. And but we were just laughing and felt like we were new best friends at that point. Like it was the best first to 10 and the most fun I've probably had in a really, really long time. Cause he started like round 1, he started, and I could be jazzing this story. I don't really quite remember that well, but he started with the anime shit in the beginning. And I think I just fucking punk stabbed him a few times, and he was like, "Oh, okay, all right, we got to be serious." And so, we were just putting our whole chalices into it, and we just finally at the end of it, he pulled out the win, and it was just like, man, that was so fun. Like it was just a blast. Highlighted the event.
He would not stop talking about those fights for the entire car ride back home.
I believe that. I believe that. We had so much fun. It was so fun. And I don't think we fought anything, and then no, we have fought since, because he numbed my arm up at
See?
in Armageddon.
We're like, oh, Cord can't take a hit. No, Luster just likes making people's arms go numb.
That's fair.
Let's see. We have another. Let's see. No, that was the. Who's your favorite red fighter to party with?
Okay, that's easy. It's Sir Frosty. Bar none.
Frosty's a good.
I'm only alive because Josh looks out for me when we party. So many times I should be dead. We have had a lot of good times. Ask him about the party at the Crystal Palace sometimes. sometime. Because I don't remember any of it.
That's very you, Horus.
Cord, who's your favorite Red Fighter to party with?
Party with, man. That's a good question. Shit, man, that's a really good question. Favorite person, favorite Red Fighter to party with. Trying to think.
If you need time, I can go.
You go, because I'm needing to think on this one.
Okay, so an Ebonlight staple is to get Luster incredibly drunk. Get him any
True.
sort of pizza paraphernalia you can find, and he ascends to Lord Lenny. And he will use his power of, like, his personality's charisma to just get a horde of people to follow him. It was not last winter, we went for before them. He found a pallet, and he found, like, 5 people to put him on the pallet, and rose him above everyone's heads, and was starting to, like, throw pre-workout at people. People were raving all around him, and he made a parade all around the entire campground. And then he's also done, like, stupid shit where he'll put people on, like, quests and stuff like that. One of my favorite stories is that he made Wayward push his ups, where he had Wayward be, like, on the ground and push him up vertically to raise him up. And then it was just crazy, insane party time, where if you get Luster drunk enough, Lord Lenny will arise. And then at one point, he went to a Way of the Sword tournament, which is like a Florida-specific, Southeast-specific, like, Eastern culture LARP, where you could headshot and foam swords. Anyways, they had what's called a Kenjutsu tournament, where it was basically katana fighting. He won it. And they gave him this, like, red barrel armor that's legal in their sport. And it says, like, winner or #1 champion on it in Japanese on it. And he would wear it, and then he became Shogun Rennie. And now he had this, like, alternate fighting versus against Lord Lenny with it himself. And he would switch costumes within the night and force people to fight against the Lord Lenny lineage versus the Shogun Rennie lineage. And it was just absolutely insane.
Jesus.
That's fantastic.
Makes sense.
So yeah, Luster again.
I think for me, it is either like Cookie and Noodle, like both of them together, or Drim, actually. Because at nighttime in Bell, I kind of stopped drinking, so now it's a lot of like heavy RP, and the people I heavy RP with, well, I mean, Drim's one of the best there ever is, and if you've red fought Drim, they're very, very good at red fighting, and they love doing it. So it's really fun to like run around and bug people and be ridiculous, and then sometimes when I do drink, I'll just chase Kodos or Ebonlight, whoever I can find, because they're hilarious and they're my homies. But Cookie and Noodle, oh yeah, they party hard.
That's a hard question for me to ask or answer because, I'm just over maybe a year and a half in, I'd say, and I haven't done, since I'm a huge stick jock, I haven't done a ton of partying at Bell events and whatnot. So it's a hard question for me to ask or answer. I keep saying ask. And like at Olympics, I definitely partied a lot. I just don't remember any of it because I partied hard enough that I kind of blacked out a little bit.
That means you had a good time.
But if I remember that event particularly well, I remember sitting with Spicy and Maddie and having wild conversations. I genuinely don't remember what those conversations were. I just remember coming out of that being like, man, what the fuck were we talking about? So I'll go with, lots of devil's lettuce for me. So.
Oh, good. Tanny, you and I need to have a chit chat.
We do. We need to have a nature walk.
That's my world.
But I'll say Spicy because I think that's probably the only Red Fighter I've partied with at this point.
We have to change that. Now,
We do.
Fox, you and I have an obligation. Oh my God, let's not talk about Mr. Vanilla Gorilla and his partying, okay? That's
holy
I want to meet Lenny.
Oh my goodness.
Ragnarok is the
Fucking
wild
Chaos
time.
Wars, dude. We had a year where we had Glad Pits. We had a fucking flamethrower. Godspot had a flamethrower. It was crazy.
What? There's a flamethrower?
I got stories, my friend.
Jeez.
fuck yeah.
We have a legitimate question if we want to go back to topic
should.
stuff.
Let's do
We
it.
should.
Oh, where is it? I just saw it.
It's
Mr.
it has to do with have we reached the peak of red fighting, or is there
Yeah,
more?
do you think
More.
we're nearing the
There's
peak of where
more.
Red Skill will go, or do you think there's still plenty?
There's always
for
more.
interesting- Always more. Yeah.
There's always more.
Yeah.
I
There's
think
always going to be that person who breaks through with some new technique or new idea.
Yeah.
That's just going to catapult into a new
The
era.
other thing is like the game has changed. So for a long time, I feel like red fighting was like a support thing. Now it's becoming a main thing. But I'm gonna be honest, the demographic of Belagarth is changing. We're having a lot more people who come from really athletic backgrounds coming in and doing this, or people who are willing to put a lot more energy working out, time, not once a week, not twice a week, maybe every day, to practice and get better. The amount of improvement that you see because of that is absurd. And so my guess is next year we're going to see red fighters that are better than any red fighter this year, right? And you look at people like Peter the Quick. Peter the Quick has never stopped growing ever, right? There is no end to PTQ. It just gets better and better. And the moment he meets someone new that is really good and he's like, oh, wow, this is a fun challenge, guess what? He's going to get better and better because of adaptability. So I don't really think there's any level that will get that's the cap, because at the end of the day, if you put two fencers against each other with the same technology, one is going to be better. So you can have the best tech, you can have all the right gear, but I don't even think there's a meta. Like, you can say there's a meta, but truthfully, you can have a fighter fighting with a totally different weapon set. Maybe it's like a Frosty fighting with a heavier weapon who just really is dedicated to the work of it, and all of a sudden they're going to crush people. I mean, I've definitely gone out there with a much, much heavier sword than I need to, and, you know, game over for some people. Why? Because I know how to use it, right? So I think it's endless.
I feel like in some ways red fighting might still be in its infancy. I think that there's a lot of growth that can be done, just because, you know, there's with my background, there's like an entire other game that has pushed a lot of fighting improvements that, you know, both, you know, all three games have kind of leaned on, that doesn't take red sword seriously. So you have an entire community that still needs to be tapped into it and add their input. You have the technology's changing. It hasn't really stabilized until maybe recently, right? And
No.
you know, and it's like you're with technology improvements, you're going to see skill improvements because they're going to utilize that technology to do more things. You know, I think that there's going to be, I think that there's just a lot. I also think that, especially in terms of shields, like dozer shields and back shields, you're not seeing standardization in those. You see people with all different kinds of shields and things. And when there's, you know, when there isn't standardization, I feel like there's innovation that is actively happening, you know, because if innovation's not happening, then you have everybody's using the same thing, you know. So it just really,
like, I want to call out Misty real quick about innovation. She showed me this cool front forward shield that she made that was like a hybrid of like shoulder buckler and like low strap, but also like dozer buckler, but also like the Malkin like forward shield combo idea. That was just such a mind-blowing idea of like making a compact tower shield that was also really easy to fight red, but also really easy to fight Florentine with also.
Adaptability.
Misty can explain it way better than I can, but it was such a cool idea. I fought with it a bunch at a Florida event, and it was a neat idea of like, wow, this is a whole new idea of like me bucklered front, like, oh, okay, my left arm throwing it there, and like I've just been lazy, but I've been wanting to make one for myself too. But yeah, Misty, you've been doing an incredible work about innovating stuff just in general, like using tungsten for weights and using carbon fiber handles over your carbon fiber swords and forward-facing shields. So kudos to you for really being a person who I believe is really pushing that innovation forward.
And I think what's important, third, and what I think is really important is that the community of red fighters is supportive of new things.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, isn't always the case. But as brutal as we are, we're really interested in learning. Like, anytime I get beaten by something new, I'm like, yeah! You know, and I feel like you guys probably say the same thing.
Except for quarterstaffs. I get sad.
You know what?
They're hilarious.
We're going to call them like Q-tip queens or something in like 5 years, and it's going to be the meta. Everybody's using a quarterstaff.
I've got one.
Horus, any
I've made a bunch.
Any thoughts? And we could call these closing thoughts. Any closing thoughts on where red fighting might be going in the future?
Without limitations to rule sets, we're just going to get bigger, longer, lighter swords. I'm a bad example of this. I've been using 8-foot ultra uber light swords for Polon tournaments and for 4 horsemen and 7-man. Crash is bigger and stronger than I am, and he does a lot better job doing with those swords. But there has been a lot of push, like I seen in the chat, about having 6 foot be the cap or 7 foot be the cap to make swing legal, or like even having a stab only legal cap too. We've been playtesting it in the Southeast a lot about making 6 foot swing cap at Orc Wars. We've been trying to do it at Frostbane in Florida and other events. It's just a idea. Some people have talked about like, well, 8 foot swing is my main, and if I can't do it, I'm not going to fight anymore. And I don't want those people to stop fighting anymore, but there also might be some cap issue where it's like, oh, my Crash literally has a 10-foot glaive that weighs 30 ounces.
It's stupid.
Yeah, I like his smaller swords better, but that is still an option you can do. You can take an 8-foot glaive and you can put a carbon fiber rod that's bigger and add an extra 4 feet to it and fiber fix it, and now you have a 10-foot or a 12-foot. The technology's there. That's just how I feel the future is. It's just longer, lighter, stronger.
I agree with you, but that's not my hope. My hope is more technical. My hope is more finesse. My hope is that the people that are pushing red swords, and I think that this is the case, to be honest, get more and more into the same level that I'm going to use the Emir simply as an example. There are other people who do it. The Emir's understanding and deep level of chess playing with a single blue stick that they do, I want to see red swords users doing that. And they are, and it's beginning. But there's so much that you can do. I mean, historically, one of the most used swords was a hand-and-a-half sword for a fucking reason, right? Like, I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes. I just hope people are safe with it.
Let's do one bonus question just because, you know, I put this show together and I get to cheat. What do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about Meduse and Belgarth?
I love them. I don't have any idea why they're not legal. It's a silly, fun weapon that we've already proven works. Who gives a shit? It's my stance.
If it's a shield break. If it's a sword, doesn't shield break.
That. Also, yeah, then your
weapon. Is that why they're illegal?
Yep. Because people are concerned about the confusion between if you hit a Madu with a shield-breaking weapon, does it break the shield if you hit the sword?
But
yeah, that's kind of silly. I mean, if you can downstick, then I don't really see
Madu. It's the same thing, except Madus are safer on your wrist because you don't have to hold both handles. I would love.
I'm already getting punched by shields all the time, which is technically legal, except when they hit you in the face. So.
Yep. To answer Gorg, I've yet to see someone win a Wargod with 8-footer, but I think that's because it's a 1v1.
Correct. You're not going to win a 1v1 with an 8-foot. You can. Why wouldn't you just go with a 6 or a 7 if you really want?
I use a 65-inch one. Mini glaive.
Now when I can convince some of our people with the 8-footers to go fight a war god with them and see if they can win.
You do it, yes, but man, if you're fighting a competent sword and border, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna half them. Halved.
Yep.
No. I love this ruler. This has been a good problem.
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually a loose rule about I teach people in red fighting that once you get your 4-foot, every foot is an extra hit you get on the sword and border for free, if you have a full blade.
Makes sense.
So in red, 4-foot, you get 1 shot before they kill you. 5-foot, you get 2 shots. 6-foot, you get 3 shots, etc., etc., etc.
Well, we're about at time. I want to thank Blademaster Fox, Warmaster Cord. Thank you, my co-star, Sir Horus. We've had a great bench, and looking forward to seeing everybody next Thursday, 6 p.m. Central. Any last thoughts? Last thoughts?
The bench is awesome. Subscribe.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Do the YouTube things, do the Twitch things.
Hell yeah.
Do the Amazon sub. It's free.
Woo.
Appreciate y'all. I turned the music down, so it shouldn't be an ear blaster. Hopefully. We'll find out. Peace out. Catch you next time.